Okay, adoption of water reuse technology. I guess it'd be good to understand how you would characterize the progress that has been made to date, and maybe even in doing that, identify if there been any particular blockers, or is it just it's not as high profile as it should be?
Mm. Yeah, so actually, like water reuse technology has been being installed safely in commercial settings now for over 20 years, we see relatively few issues due to there's like really robust oversight, and um, we're seeing that progress happening in the commercial settings. But where we're seeing lack of action really has been in new residential developments, and that's really been insufficient. So when we at Waterwise developed the UK water efficiency strategy through to 2030, we consulted on it, and ambition to see progress on rainwater harvesting and water reuse was something that came up as being a real high on the priority list from the stakeholders that we engaged with. Um, we're pleased to see that there is starting to be some progress here. So the Ofwat funded Enabling Water Smart Communities project, they've been doing some great work developing a roadmap to water reuse, and increasing the understanding of what the opportunities are, but also what the challenges are and where we maybe need to do more work. So it's through that really that this project that we developed, looking at this workforce and the supply chain capabilities, came about, and therefore carrying out our scoping project.
Okay, yeah, and the new report entitled "Bridging the Skills Gap for Water Reuse in the UK" suggests that urgent actions needed in terms of preparing for more widespread water reuse. I guess mainly to address the grow. I mean, we've had a dry summer, so hopefully everyone's, yeah, the message is beginning to hit home or continuing to hit home. There's a growing scarcity challenge. So yeah, just a bit of background to the report, and then we'll look at its sort of content in more detail.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the report highlights, something that many of us are now well aware of, that actually water scarcity is a growing concern in the UK. And we do have this projected shortfall of 5 billion litres of water a day by 2055, that the Environment Agency have highlighted for England. Um, and then simultaneously, we've got the government wants to build new houses. There's an aim to build 1.5 million new homes. And we're already seeing parts of the UK where actually water shortages and that water scarcity is hampering the ability to build those new homes, to develop and have growth in businesses as well. So water smart housing, including water reuse, is going to be really crucial both for tackling the water and the housing crises. And really, we're seeing our urgent actions needed to build those skills and the infrastructure that's needed so that there can be really widespread adoption of this technology, which is going to really help us tackle the issue of water scarcity in the UK.
Again, specifically, I think the report highlights there's a shortage of skilled personnel and supply chain capabilities when it comes to water reuse schemes. So perhaps just explain a bit more about where why those gaps exist, or what they are, what the extent of them are.
Yeah, when we developed the report, it was initially done through some desktop research and interviews. And I should say special thanks to my colleague Lauren Salter, who really led on all of that work. And that really helped us develop a roundtable event to bring a range of organisations together with expertise in the different areas to discuss the challenges. And it was through these conversations it really came through that the current workforce and supply chain capabilities are insufficient to meet the projected demand for water reuse schemes if we can really get going with it. And this shortage is a significant barrier to both addressing water scarcity and supporting that new housing growth effectively with water smart solutions. Um, there is the challenge there, but that said, there are real actions that can be taken to address this as well, and that was something that gave a lot of heart in when preparing the report was that there are steps we can take, and we will be able to make a difference with that, so we can get to a water smart future.
Yeah, there's a list of them I think I got down to ask you about a bit later, but maybe the sort of high level couple. I think the plumbing industry you highlight, it needs to upskill fairly urgently, and alongside that there needs to be broader education for, I guess, everyone involved in the water ecosystem, all the way from architects through to homeowners even. So just yeah, thoughts as to sort of how important those bits of upskilling education are.
Yeah, so certainly the plumbing industry was the area that was identified as having that most urgent need for upskilling. Um, Plumbers have possess really strong practical skills, but there is this knowledge gap specifically around areas of reuse, and it seemed to be particularly regarding dual pipe systems, water regulations, and also cross-contamination prevention. So clearly, it's really important that that upskilling happens so that there could be really safe and effective installations, which we know are totally possible. But then also around, the longevity of these installations. So once you've moved into a home that's got rainwater harvesting or reuse, if something goes wrong, you need to be able to have call on your plumber and know that they're going to be able to look after it and manage it safely. So kind of there's the people installing it, but then there's that longer term maintenance piece as well. And the point you said about the range of other roles that are going to be needed was a really interesting area. It's certainly something that when we were working on the report, it almost surprised me, like just how many different roles get involved in this and need to have an understanding about water reuse and the work that's needed for that. So we've got things like architects, designers, but things like the facilities managers are important as well. So that, again, that longevity once the buildings are complete, the ongoing maintenance and management of these things. Engineers and house builders, the building control professionals, and even sales staff, so that when they're selling buildings and products, they're able to give exactly the right advice to the new homeowners. We also identified the regulators and oversight bodies that may need some upskilling and understanding in this area. And actually also just like public education, so that homeowners themselves and landlords too really understand that they're aware of the risks and the responsibilities, so that the systems can be handled effectively, everyone's kept safe, and that they're making sure that they're using really qualified professionals when they're working on their plumbing systems.
Okay, and just before we go into the list of actions, is it fair to say that when it comes to reuse technology, it's far easier to deploy it in a new build scenario than retrofit? Is that part of the problem, or is it relatively simple to retrofit, whether it's rainwater harvesting or grey water, harvesting within in a existing building?
Yeah, I mean, certainly installing in a brand new property is the most cost effective and easiest to do. I suppose like the housing stock that we have across the UK, it's so varied, and yeah, the different sorts of challenges that might be needed from one property to the next makes it a bit more complicated for retrofitting. But it's not to say that it can't be done. And I think almost that step of making sure that new builds are definitely being built with this technology straight from the start, that will help uh, grow the sector, grow innovation, and then start to enable, I'm sure, more opportunities for retrofit as well. But yes, new builds is definitely a good place to start, and somewhere that we should be starting as soon as we possibly can.
And in terms of the actions recommended, the first one I think is the professionalisation of the water reuse sector. So, what would that look like? Is that a yes? Yeah. Tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you?
Yeah, so professionalising the water reuse industry, we saw the opportunity to develop accreditation frameworks and also things like competent person schemes. This really aims to reduce the risks and make sure there's long-term compliance and build trust in the water reuse systems. So it really was drawing parallels on successful models like GasSafe. And actually, the conversations we had developing the report, when people read it, they'll see that there's a lot of really excellent organisations that exist that are working to support the sector, support plumbing sector, the water sector in their training and development. And so there's real opportunities to work further with them. And we're seeing a lot of interest now in like, how can we take this report's really was a first step thinking about like, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities? And now we're really excited to see what could be done with those recommendations.
And more generally, you say training and education for all. Clearly, that the plumbing folks, I guess they're identifiable, easy to identify groups, so you can communicate with it. Obviously, for everyone, that's a bit more of a challenge. But what sort of things do you envisage to spread the message, if you like?
Yeah, so we think there could be a really comprehensive strategy that involves training and education for all stakeholders. So that was one of the core recommendations. And that's going to mean engaging with industry, with training providers, regulatory bodies, to develop what the appropriate upskilling programs for the plumbing industry might be, exploring flexible training options. I think one of the areas that came up a few times was actually, a lot of the workforce, they're going from different jobs to different jobs. They're very mobile. So, sitting in a classroom isn't always the best route for this sort of thing. So actually, how can we make use of more of the technology that's out there now? Video training, online sessions. There's been some nice examples of people using virtual reality to help people like train in a safe environment, and sort of practice and learn what they're doing using virtual reality. And also just making sure that the information is always there for people. So a really nice example we saw at a block of flats that's being built with water reuse for toilet flushing. There's regular places where the plumbers might need to go in and fix some piping or what have you. They have QR codes as sticker labels at strategic points, and those QR codes can then take the plumber to a video clip that explains exactly the situation at that location for them. So yeah, there's the sort of opportunities to try a few more innovative approaches to enable that message to be able to get across to people. So yeah, and I think like actually public awareness, there's a lot of interest actually, I think, in the public on what are the opportunities for use of rainwater, water reuse. Some of the work that the Enabling Water Smart Communities have done is showing like actually there's like public appetite for seeing more of this. So yeah, finding ways to have that public awareness communications as well would be great.
Okay, and alongside that, I think there's a suggestion that there needs to be some clarification of the regulatory frameworks and a look at standardization. I mean, is there existing bits of legislation regulations, or is it as it's still fairly new, although as you say it's been going on for is there a need for a sort of ground up framework of how to go about water reuse?
Yeah, so one of the things we have is at the moment, the UK water regulations, they're really primarily designed for potable water systems. And that has meant that water reuse side of things sort of been seen as, excuse the grey water pun, but a kind of a grey area. So those ambiguities really need like some consistent, clear framework. And that's going to then enable the standardisation of training and content and really um, enable that effective rollout of water reuse systems. And there is movement happening in this area. So we were really heartened that the Independent Water Commission specifically called out rainwater harvesting and reuse as needing progress. So I think we should be seeing in the next few months more information coming through about that and kind of what that's going to mean for the water sector and the regulations.
Okay, and then a couple of other things I think were recommended action-wise. There was need for perhaps dedicated funding for workforce development, and I'm interested in that because clearly at the moment sort of nobody has any money. So just sort of how that might come about, and also I think you suggesting that aligning water reuse skills with more the wider national green skills strategy. So yeah, perhaps if you can say a little bit about each of them.
Yeah, so yeah, the funding opportunities, yeah, it's always difficult, isn't it? Where do we actually get the money to do these things? And I suppose that's where actually, if we can combine our efforts with other green skills strategies that are needed, it's got the potential to unlock some of that funding. So we think there could be much more collaboration between manufacturers and water companies and the government to invest in training initiatives. There was some nice examples actually, like in Germany, where funding incentives from the government really helped to kickstart water reuse there. And in a way, like when we think of these green skills strategies, it's an area that at Waterwise, I think it's been one of our frustrations for a long time, is how water gets missed out when we're thinking of the net zero goals and activities. And actually, there's real opportunity to align activities in those areas. So yeah, can we actually, if we're doing net zero and green skills training, let's get water in there as well as part of it. Yeah, and what an opportunity there is for like future careers, future jobs and employment in the UK to have a workforce that's really skilled up and able to make a difference, and this opportunity to really we know that there's a real opportunity to scale up on the water reuse and rainwater harvesting here. So yeah, it's a great chance to really invest in a future workforce.
And maybe just finally, I don't know how long you've been involved in the sector. I'm trying to think. It's probably 30 years now for me, which is quite long ago. And being cynical, I could say, sort of seen all these things before, but we've obviously had the recent IWC review, which has got some great recommendations in there. I guess if I can ask you, and if you're happy to answer, are you optimistic that this time there might be a difference? Or do you worry that for all the good intentions, as again we've seen at various times in the past, the sort of can gets, shall we say, kicked down the road again, and we might be depressingly having the same conversation in a couple of years' time? Or do you think there is a real energy and drive to get this, the water industry overall, but water reuse in your case, firmly on the agenda and actions actually making a difference?
Yeah, yeah. So not quite as long as you in the water sector, but I realised the other day it is coming up for 20 years or so, so a fair old time. And I think I I am feeling optimistic. So I was lucky enough to be able to attend the launch of the Independent Water Commission review, and Sir John Cunliffe took one of my questions, which was sort of asking him to talk more about the water efficiency side of the review recommendations. And when he answered it, I was really heartened that he specifically highlighted the importance of water reuse for homes and businesses, and the need to overcome the regulatory barriers. So the fact that that was being highlighted, that does give me real optimism. And I think our report highlights that actually there is existing investment in workforce development and initiatives can really make a difference. So there's examples like the Clean Power Army that could really be expanded to include water reuse. There's also been some really great leadership shown by the rainwater harvesting and water reuse sector themselves, the manufacturers. So they have already been developing the training and things that are needed. So there's opportunity to really scale that up. Not sure, it depends when people watch this video, but on the 15th of September this year, 2025, the UK Water Reuse Association is holding Water Reuse Week, and it's going to be a national campaign really hoping to raise awareness of the importance of saving and reusing water. So we're seeing this momentum and the organisations really picking up the pace. What we hope is that the policy side is also see that picking up, and there's commitments that some action off the recommendations we should be hearing more this autumn around it. We're hoping to have the building regulations consultation coming out very soon. So yeah, I think overall optimistic, and the recommendations, they could really lead to action and get water reuse really integrated into national strategies. But we do need that concerted effort, and if we don't, then actually we're really putting our water resources at risk. So yeah, let's hope we can come back and talk in a few years' time and see some of that action happening.
It's brilliant. I mean, it's been great to chat, and thank you so much for sharing insights into the report and your thoughts on the future. And I agree with you. That seems to me this time around it does look and feel a bit different. So hopefully, as you say, if it's not going to happen in this area and others, then the future's not necessarily that great, is it, in terms of our water resources? But Jo, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil.